DeWittLaw.com. That is ask at DEWITT law.com. Mo, it's good to be back here with you. How you doing? How you been? It's been a couple weeks or so. Maybe one or two.
Probably. It's been a little while. As you know, we've had some family stuff come up, which has forced us to be off the air and out of the office, unfortunately. But we're back. It's good to be back.
It is.
And tackle some late breaking legal news for everybody.
Yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff to get into, but I'm curious. I'll ask you this to start, because you're older than me, and I mean that in the nicest of ways. Just why I paused to emphasize it right beforehand.
Uh-huh.
That's always a sign of niceness. So I just turned 30, and everyone is always like, all I've ever heard is like, as soon as you hit 30, everything breaks down. And I was curious if you remember, what was the first thing to go for you when you turned 30?
I'm still chugging along. I don't know. I think everybody at heart always thinks they're still young. Stuff creaks a little bit here and there, but every once in a while, I think you get into a situation where you're like, oh, I can lift that.
Yeah.
No problem. You're like, whoa.
Like, yeah, I think
something like that. Or you run a little bit and you're like, oh, that's...
our guy Scott Inez started keeping like a bag of frozen peas at the station once he hit 30, because he would play basketball and do some damage. So that's just my concern there, and I just wanted to see if there's anything I could look out for.
I mean, as an avid endorseman like myself, I think you'll be all right. It's people out there, being overly ambitious, playing basketball, stuff like that. They have the problems.
Yeah, you're right, because I definitely don't do that ever. Let's go ahead and talk about a lot of news, a lot of things happening right now, and obviously a big thing being the special session.
Yeah, so as we've kind of talked about in some of the previous shows, the legislature is in a special session, or about to be in a special session. And one of the big issues is the property insurance crisis. And so we've talked about that again on prior shows. And, in the state of Florida right now, there's a real issue with homeowners insurance. I've personally experienced it. I know probably a lot of listeners out there have experienced it, mostly related to roofing claims right now.
Right. And we talked a little bit about that on a previous show. We in depth a little bit, I think so.
Yeah.
If you missed it, you could always go back and listen.
You always go back, but we'll kind of recap it here as well.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, right now, a lot of the insurance companies are taking the position, if your roof is 10 years or older, we're going to force you to replace it, or we're going to drop you, because basically they're sick of paying for all these roofs out there under, the way the statute's written right now. They basically kind of get forced into paying for them. So a number of insurance companies have pulled out of the state of Florida. A number have gone bankrupt. And so now we're really kind of left with Citizens Insurance, which Citizens is the insurance company in the state of Florida that's backed by the state. So it's kind of the state-run insurance company. And I think last we checked, I don't have the current numbers, but last time we talked about it, Citizens was signing up 5,000 new policies a week, meaning people were switching over to them at the rate of 5,000 new clients per week, essentially, which is just an astronomical number.
It was a lot happening very fast.
Yeah, which just goes to show you, a lot of people are getting dropped from their insurance companies. A lot of insurance companies are pulling out of the state of Florida. It's just becoming harder to find homeowners insurance other than Citizens. And actually, I just had to switch to Citizens on one of my policies because they dropped us because our roof just hit 10 years old, which was funny. I had the inspector come out and he goes, yeah, this roof's got another 20 years on it easily.
Insurance companies don't care, though.
They don't care. And, it's going to be $20,000 to replace the roof if we replaced it to try to stay with our existing homeowners insurance company. So it's created a lot of issues for a lot of people out there. And so they've got this special session going on. And according to the lawmakers, they're hopeful that they'll get something passed. Now, I guess there was a bill back in the last legislative session from 2022. They say it's a good bill. It's not a great bill, but they're going to basically try to use that and get that passed. So they're saying, we have to pass something here. It would be political suicide not to, is what they're saying. So what that looks like, we'll kind of see. And as we kind of talked about before, the current laws that are in place kind of stem from Hurricane Andrew. They've been modified over time here and there, but there was a lot of claims that were being denied during Hurricane Andrew. So this a bill was passed essentially to try to keep insurance companies honest and force them to pay legitimate claims. Now, some people would argue the pendulum has swung the other way, and now they're paying all sorts of claims. But it's really, there's bad actors on both sides. There's insurance companies that have denied and lowballed claims for years. There's people who have taken advantage of the system. If you live in the state of Florida or have for a period of time, I think probably everybody and their mother at this point has had someone come by their house and say, "Oh, I can
Knocked on
get
the
you,"
door.
knocked
Yeah.
on the door and say, I can get you a free roof. Well, nothing is in this life is free. You pay for it now or you pay for it later. So that's kind of what we're seeing here. It'll be interesting to see what they actually accomplish in this special session. It seems like everybody's on board to make some concessions here to try to get something done. And I think they actually last year got a little bit done. But whether they're able to come up with something that works for everybody is yet to be seen. But it is becoming a crisis in the state of Florida where, of course we have hurricanes and nobody wants to insure us, off the bat because of hurricanes,
Right.
especially on the coast.
Well, and it's also why it's not surprising that a lot of these insurance companies are dropping people now as hurricane season is
hurricane season's
2 weeks
rolling
away.
in. Hey, because that's the other thing. They know if a hurricane comes through, a storm comes through, they're going to get a bunch of roofing claims because even if it's not a catastrophic storm, there could be some roof damage, and then they're going to get a bunch of claims where people are asking for their roofs to be replaced and for the insurance companies to pay for it. So that is part of the problem. So we'll see what they're able to do in this special session. It'll be interesting to kind of monitor, but as it currently stands, it's very difficult to get insurance here. And like I was saying, it's not only because of the hurricanes, especially if you live on the coast, but now with these roofing claims and everything else, I think I don't have the stats in front of me, but last we kind of discussed, I think it's 1/3 of the claims in the nation come out of Florida. It's somewhere around 1/3, like 30%, 35%
Of
homeowners insurance claims come out of the state of Florida. I think it's like 70 or 75% of the litigation is in the state of Florida. So, I mean, you do see that there, those numbers, given the population, we have a large population in our state, but not enough to justify that level of claims being filed and being litigated. So, and just so the audience knows, I don't handle these types of claims. We don't do these types of claims. So I really have no dog in this fight. I just think it's interesting to kind of monitor and see what they're going to do to try to help, reform this and try to help the citizens of the state of Florida. That's really what this is all about. We need to be able to have homeowners insurance in the state of Florida that's affordable because that can be a rather large cost for a homeowner on a monthly basis. If our homeowners insurance is going to double or triple, that makes housing not affordable for a lot of people.
In a housing market that it's already not affordable because people are getting outbid by cash buyers left and right. So it's just not helpful at all.
Yeah, and the other issue is, if you have homeowners insurance and they cancel it, they can't get renewed, and you have a mortgage, then the mortgage company places what they call forced place insurance on your mortgage, and it can cost 2 or 3 times what your normal homeowners insurance costs. So, it can.
And what is the coverage like on that too? Is it less or is
It's typically not good coverage, but it's basically just covering the mortgage company if the house is to be completely destroyed, that their investment's secure. That's why they place the forced place insurance on the home, is they're protecting themselves, right? Because the bank has loaned you money for this house, and they don't want the house. Sure, the land has value, but the house also has value. They don't want their investment to be destroyed by a storm, and then they're losing money on the investment. So that's why they go ahead and put the forced placed insurance on it, which you're paying for. Don't get me wrong, you're still paying for it. Your monthly mortgage rate's going to go up quite a bit to pay for that. But it's to protect their investment. And yeah, typically the coverage isn't great for the homeowner. It really only protects the lender, the mortgage company.
Yeah, I just did a little research looking it up, and it was found here that in 2019 was the latest measurement I could find that Florida accounted for more than 76% of all litigation against insurers nationwide.
Yeah, which is just crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy that 3/4 of the insurance or the litigation for insurance claims is in the state of Florida. 49 other very populous states in this nation, and 75% of the litigation is here in Florida. Obviously, something needs to be done, and obviously that's why insurance companies don't want to be here anymore, because it's just not beneficial for them to do so. At the end of the day, look, nobody likes insurance companies, at least I don't. But they are a business. They want to make money. That's why they're offering insurance. And the way they do that is by, having a large group of people who they insure. Well, if 3/4, not 3/4, but if 3/4 of the, almost 3/4 of the litigation is in Florida, why would you want to insure that state?
Yeah.
Just from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense for them to do so. Obviously, that's why we're having to rely on Citizens so much right now. And Citizens just went out to the reinsurance market, which is basically where insurance companies buy insurance. And the legislature just approved them to buy $400 million worth of reinsurance because they know that they're going to have a ton of claims on their hands because right now they're pretty much the only game in town. So they got to protect themselves against potential claims as well.
Well, and so I'm just, and this is in the same article I found from with the other numbers that Citizens is at 5,500 new additions per week now.
Yeah.
And so it's climbed up even a little bit since we
Yeah, I think last time was at 5,000 a week.
right? And now, on average, the national payout for insurance is $100.70 on every $100 premium that they take in. So
Right.
they make 7%, which is kind of how they stay in business. It's not a lot, but it's how they do it. And then in Florida, between 2016 and 2019, it paid out at 117.5%.
Yeah.
Which is astronomically higher than what the national average is. It's basically $117.50 per the $100 premium, which is a lot. And again, why insurance companies see those numbers and think, I don't want to insure here anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Their actuaries have crunched the numbers and said, hey, it's not worth us for us to be in the state anymore. It costs us too much money. There's too much risk. Not like I said, with the hurricanes, with the storms, with everything else we got going on, then to throw the roofing claims and everything else on top of it. And don't get me wrong, there are legitimate claims. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
That's one thing that does kind of bother me is whenever there's kind of a shift in the pendulum, the insurance company says, oh, these lawyers are just out to get us, yada, yada. The reason that lawyers are in business that go up against insurance companies is because insurance companies don't pay claims. I mean, a lot of times they deny legitimate claims. That's why this legislation was originally passed. Let's not forget that. Back in Hurricane Andrew, when the insurance companies were denying claims left and right, and it was extraordinarily difficult for people to get money to rebuild their homes, that's why they had to put this legislation in place. Now the pendulum just, kind of swung to the other side, but there is a reason that it was originally put in place. So, while the insurance companies are quick to point the finger, at the same time, they've denied a lot of legitimate claims over the years or lowballed people on legitimate claims. That's why this legislation was put in place. And yeah, now it needs to be reformed again. But at the end of the day, both parties here have to kind of act in good faith if you want to be able to continue to insure homes in the state of Florida.
We're going to continue to talk about this here in a moment, but in the meantime, if you do have a question for the show about this or any legal question you might have, it could just be a general question you've always had about the law, send an email to us, ask@DeWittLaw.com, and we'll read those questions live on the air. That's ask@DeWittLaw.com, and always you can schedule an appointment with the DeWitt Law Firm by giving them a call at 1-800-DeWitt-Law. That is 1-800-339-4885. Don't forget, also check out the DeWitt Law Firm on Twitter, on Facebook, and TikTok, Instagram, all of them. Mo does a lot of really fun things, a lot of cool video things, and I always come here with ideas for more videos because they're a lot of fun, and I watch them and I think of more ideas that he should do because, again, they're fun. So you should watch them and then email us questions and email him ideas. Ask@DeWittLaw.com. We got plenty more show coming up for you here. You're listening to the DeWitt Law Review on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580.
Injured on the go, just call Moe. You can see. Just call Moe. Injured on the go, just call Moe. This guy's young for attack. Push it faster, I say. Just call Moe.
And welcome back to the DeWitt Law Review on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. Don't forget, if you want to call the office for DeWitt Law, you can at 1-800-DeWitt-Law or 1-800-339-4885. You got a question for the show, hit us up via email, ask@DeWittLaw.com, ask@DeWittLaw.com. And it's been a little while, but we've got the voicemails going here again, 407-536-6737. If you want to leave a voicemail that will play on the air and get your question answered that way, we've got a couple that we'll get to here later on in the next segment. But that number is 407-53-MOSES, 407-536-6737. You just call and you just leave a brief message and we'll play it on the air. 407-53-MOSES. But Mo, I did want to circle back to the special session that we were talking about there. So I think it'd be good just to remind everyone kind of what is on the table with this and what they're discussing and what maybe one of the outcomes or possible outcomes could be here.
So one of the main things that they're talking about, and there's a number of things in this bill, but this is kind of one that stuck out at me, is when it comes to roofs in the insurance policy. Right now, it's replacement value, right? So if you have to replace your roof, the insurance company just pays whatever it costs to replace it. Doesn't matter if it's $20,000, $60,000, whatever it may be, they cut a check to pay for the replacement. One thing they're proposing is that instead of having replacement value, they just assign a fixed value as part of the policy. So basically, in your policy, it would say that you have roof coverage up to $10,000, up to $20,000, whatever the number is that you're paying for.
It would be kind of like your car insurance in the way that you pay a
Exactly.
higher amount for a higher premium.
Exactly. So let's say that you bought a policy under this new legislation that gave you up to $20,000 for your roof replacement. Let's say it costs $40,000 to replace that roof. Now you're still going to have to come out of pocket $20,000. The insurance company will cover that first $20,000, but anything beyond that would be out of your own pocket. So that's the risk there, especially with people who are maybe on a fixed income, don't have that kind of money to shell out if they need to replace the roof. That's where the risk is there on the consumer side. Obviously, on the insurance side, it helps limit their risk because now they have a fixed dollar amount rather than just kind of waiting for market conditions and for some appraiser to come out and say it's going to cost X to replace this roof. And if you've replaced a roof in the last 10 years, when we bought our house, they had just replaced the roof. I think they paid $4,000 to replace that roof. We just got a quote, it was $20,000. So you can see the price of roofs have gone up dramatically as well, which obviously has not helped the insurance companies either.
Well, and this makes a little more sense in the fact that, we talked about that number before of what the average payout of the insurance company was in Florida versus the other states, in the national average, that is $17.50 more. This would be something that would curtail that because they charge more for a more expensive replacement. And that's kind of how this would work. In one sense, you could say, hey, I don't think my roof is going to get damaged. I'm kind of cool with doing, $10,000 minimum, or somebody might buy a house with an older roof and say, hey, I need $30,000 worth of coverage on this thing. It'll cost a little more, but it protects the insurance company while you also still keep a high level of protection yourself.
Well, it certainly would discourage some claims if there's some minor roof damage, but you're not really seeing any damage inside the home, and you have to pay some money out of pocket, especially a substantial amount out of pocket. You may be less likely to file that claim. Obviously, it's a catastrophic damage, then you don't really have a choice. But I think that's where it may discourage some of those claims as well.
Yeah. So either way, it'll be kind of interesting. How long do we have? Is there a set time limit on this special session?
I think it's going through the middle of June, if I remember correctly. Don't hold me to that date, but I think that's about when it's going through.
Okay. And was there anything else on this special session?
Well, this is the main focus.
This is the main
session.
okay.
There has been some other stuff, but this is really why they had the special session. They basically said this issue is pressing. We have to solve it. We have to get something in place for the citizens of Florida because it's really becoming a pressing issue. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, listeners, friends, just everybody out there who's been receiving drop letters from their insurance company saying, hey, as of this date, we will no longer insure you unless you put a new roof on the home. And what across the board seems to be the common denominator is the roof is 10 years old.
And they didn't bring back the Surfside condo. That's not on the floor, right? That's not a part of this?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't believe that's on the floor at this point in time.
Okay. All right, well, hey, if you've got a question for Mo, if you've got a question about what we're talking about or anything, in the legal realm, go ahead. Send us an email, ask@DeWittLaw.com. That is ask@DeWittLaw.com. Or give us a call. Leave the voicemail, 407-53-MOSES, 407-536-6737. That's 407-53-MOSES. Plenty more show on the way. DeWitt Law Review on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580.
Congratulations on 305.
Welcome back to the DeWitt Law Review, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Don't forget to check out the DeWitt Law Firm on social media, at DeWitt Law Firm on Twitter, DeWitt Law Firm on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok. Go ahead. Mo does a lot of fun things there that you can see and really have a different interaction with it outside of the legal show that we do here every Sunday. It's a nice, fun side of things. A little levity to the situation because a lot of legal things are never really fun, Mo. A lot of the times, right? It's a lot of stress, yeah. But if you want to get in touch with the show, if you want to participate in the show, you can send in emails, ask@DeWittLaw.com. That's ask@DeWittLaw.com. Or we're opening up the voicemail line again. You can do those at 407-53-MOSES. That's 407-536-6737. 6737. Mo, let's go ahead and dive right in because we do have 2 new voicemails, and this is our first one that we have so far.
Mo, many large real estate brokerage companies in the state of Florida charge a flat fee in addition to a listing commission. Some states have charged this to be an illegal practice in a class action suit. Is or are Florida real estate brokerage firms charging a flat fee, doing so legally in the state of Florida? Thank you.
All right.
So, as far as I know at this point in time, basically if you enter into a contract with a realtor, they can charge whatever commissions they want. But there was an interesting case that I actually dealt with in law school, and it involved a timeshare company out of Texas. I won't say their name, but it was a long, I think it was a decade-long litigation that the state of Florida had with this timeshare company. And what the timeshare company was doing is, it was one of these timeshare resale companies.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
And so what they would do is they would charge you a flat upfront fee to list your timeshare, but then if it's sold, they would charge you a commission on the back end, 3% or something like that on the sale price, which seemed kind of silly because I can't imagine there's that many timeshares selling on the resale market. But anyways, that's a different story.
That's a different story.
But anyways, there's this lengthy, long litigation that went on for, I think it was 10 or 12 years. And ultimately the court ruled that, them charging the commission was illegal because they weren't licensed in the state of Florida, because they weren't a licensed real estate agent in the state of Florida. That was the problem there. While they were licensed in Texas, they weren't licensed here, so they couldn't do that essentially. Now I think there could be some issues with the issue with the flat fee and commission is basically, the commission's only paid if they're successful, right? So having both kind of doesn't really make sense as far as the purpose of the contract, what the intent was, right? Typically, real estate agents only get paid if they complete the transaction, either on the buyer side or the seller side. So the question becomes, if you're charging an upfront fee that you get paid no matter what, then should you also be entitled to that commission on the back end? I haven't looked into that in the state of Florida recently to know whether there's any opinions from the Attorney General or otherwise, or from FREC or the DBPR, Department of Business and Professional Regulation,
Right.
kind of oversees the real estate commission. Whether there's any opinions from them that would say you're not allowed to do that. But certainly from the intent side, I'd see why that would not really sit well with a lot of people, especially if you have to pay the flat fee up front and have to pay the commission on the back end. And even if the transaction doesn't go through, you're still on the hook for the flat fee. I could see where a lot of people wouldn't really be comfortable with that.
Right. Yeah, I get that. All right, let's go ahead and keep rolling right along to our next voicemail. And if you want to participate, send in your voicemail. You just do that by giving us a call at 407-53-MOSES, 407-536-6737, 407-53-MOSES. This is the second one that we got here.
Yes, I'd like to know what kind of watchdog groups there are that watches these places that take public donations. Some of these places, I'm pretty sure, just launder money. There's got to be some sort of watchdog group somewhere that monitors that and looks into it if an allegation has been made of money laundering. If you could help me with that information, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Mo.
So, I don't know about specific watchdog groups, but in the state of Florida, typically it's the Florida Attorney General's office who kind of oversee and investigate any of those kinds of claims. Typically if you go on their website, there is a way to file a complaint on there, and there is kind of a consumer protection division that the Florida Attorney General's office has. So, the biggest thing with, filing that complaint is to give as much information as you have or that you know of, so that they can pursue the claim and investigate the claim further. But basically go on their website, that's how you would start that.
Okay, yeah, and that's a pretty interesting way to go about it, right? Just go right to the top there. That's how you got to handle it.
Yeah, there may be other watchdog groups out there who kind of, rate charities. I think there are some.
Things,
those kinds of things. But as far as actual enforcement goes for, illegal activity or fraudulent activity, it would be the Florida Attorney General's office that would be handling that.
So this isn't charity related, but have you ever heard the conspiracy about mattress firms?
I think I have.
Yeah. It's allegedly just a money laundering front because there's so many of them. But How often do you ever actually buy a mattress or see people in there buying mattresses?
Yeah, I saw actually someone do a video explaining why there's so many mattress stores out there. I don't remember the answer to it, what their explanation was, why there were all these stores, but they had some sort of valid explanation according to them.
I now really want to find that video because I've always wondered and need to know.
I'll track it down
I don't
for
think the conspiracy theory is true, but now I've just always been like, no, I know it's not true, but I need an explanation as to why there are so many.
We'll get you answers.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, if you have any thoughts on that or just any legal questions, go ahead, give us a call, leave us a voicemail, 407-53-MOSES. That's 407-536-6737. Of course, you can also email us your questions, ask@DeWittLaw.com. That is ask@DEWITT law.com. And let's cycle over and hit some of those emails here now, Mo. I have a 16-year-old daughter that will be getting her driver's license soon. Any good suggestions on what I can do in terms of insurance to keep premiums down? The mom and I are divorced, so what policy does she have to be on?
So the biggest issue there is whoever owns the car wants to add the teenage driver as a driver on their policy. That's number one. If each parent has a car for the child, then you both need, that they're going to be driving at the respective homes. I would assume that's unlikely, but if that is the case, then you'd want to add the teenage driver on both policies. As far as keeping the cost down, teenage drivers you're going to pay a lot for, but you just want to shop it out there, shop with multiple insurance companies, but make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Make sure the coverage is the same.
Right.
Because of course you can get a discount insurance company, but then if there's actually an accident, that could leave you in a bad situation. So make sure you're comparing equivalent policies when you're comparing pricing. Of course, I always recommend having uninsured motorist coverage on there. But with divorced parents as well, if the child lives at one parent's house the majority of the time, typically they're going to provide the insurance for the child. But again, most important thing is whoever owns the vehicle has that driver listed on the policy, because as the owner of the vehicle, you're responsible for whatever your teenage driver does with the vehicle. So if they get an accident, you need to make sure you have insurance to cover both yourself and cover them in the event of an accident. So very, very important there.
And I do think that there are a lot of sites out there now that you can go to. I can't think of any off name, but
yeah, I mean the problem I always have with those sites is not just insurance, but any of those kinds of companies. Whenever you put your information in there, you get like 3,000 phone calls.
Yeah.
So I usually just like shopping individually with each company just to avoid the mass influx of spam calls. But yeah, there's certainly ways you can go online. You can make phone calls and get quotes pretty easily.
Yeah.
To check that out and make sure there's coverage. The other thing that's important to know is that if you have uninsured motorist coverage and the child at least spends some time at your house, sleeps there, even if they're not on your policy, that uninsured motorist coverage can be used if they're in an accident. Because I actually had a case where a child was in a catastrophic accident, and the mother did not have uninsured motorist coverage, but the father did. And the child had about $250,000 in medical bills.
Oh my gosh.
And because the child spent some time at the father's house, even though the child wasn't listed on that policy, we were able to get coverage under that uninsured motorist policy for the child.
Nice. Well, that is a good little tip there. That's definitely a good one to remember. I think this one will, really quick, does the legislature look to extend Reedy Creek?
Really quick? You want me to do that one really quick? Obviously, that's a loaded question, and we'll see what happens there. From a legal standpoint, it's a very, I won't go into the political aspect of it because that's not what we do on the show, but from a legal aspect, it's a very interesting legal question. Reedy Creek has been challenged numerous times in court. It's gone up to the Supreme Court. It's always been upheld historically. And so, this legislation basically overturning it, there's going to be a ton of litigation that comes out of that. So we'll see what happens with it. The one lawsuit that was kind of filed previously that made a little bit of news, that really wasn't a legitimate lawsuit. It was from some guy who's running for some political office and a couple residents who live in Orange County or Osceola County. That really had nothing to do with Reedy Creek. But there'll be a ton of litigation over it, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with it all.
Yeah, that still has a long way to go. I think that's not the last that we've heard of that, and it'll definitely be interesting to see how that plays out. But let's go ahead. We got one more email here. And again, if you do want to send us the email, ask@DeWitt Law. That is ask@DeWitt Law, or hit us up on the voicemail, 407-53-MOSES. Does my HOA have the power to not allow me to put a metal roof on that looks like shingles? Our HOA is not enforcing all the rules. And as an example, the color of homes, they are just painted and not requested for approval of the HOA. Boats in driveways and RVs parked, none are enforced. If I go ahead and put a metal roof on, what can I do to me? What can they do to me? I think he's asking, I think he knows that the HOA doesn't want him to put this metal roof on, if I'm going to read between the lines.
Yeah.
And I could be off base, but that someone told him not to put the metal roof on. He wants to put the metal roof on and is saying, if I have these examples of rules that the HOA is not enforcing, can I put a metal roof on?
So it's very, very risky. I would not recommend it. I actually had a case where I don't know what the backstory was, but a bunch of people in the neighborhood all had a roof put on by the same roofer who did not get it approved by the HOA or the architectural committee. And then the HOA sued all these homeowners. We ended up representing a number of them and basically trying to force them to replace the roof because it didn't meet the guidelines as laid out in the HOA document. So you want to be very careful. So the answer is they can make you replace the roof if they actually try to enforce it. Now, your defense to that would be what we call selective enforcement, basically saying that,
Right.
hey, historically, you have not chosen to enforce any of these covenants, and you certainly haven't not enforced them against my neighbors. Therefore, I should not be forced to abide by them as well. But of course, that could end up in lengthy litigation. You're much better off getting it approved ahead of time if you can get it approved ahead of time, because worst case scenario is they can make you pay to replace the roof. And if they have to sue you over it, you could be liable for the HOA's attorney's fees as well.
Well, let's say before putting, let's say he had, let's say, what is there anything he can do knowing these examples and present to the HOA or do beforehand that could maybe help him out in his case?
I mean, you want to get some sort of approval in writing by the HOA because then you have detrimental reliance. So
Right.
you detrimentally relied on their approval. If they come back and try to get you to replace it, then you can basically say, you want me to replace it, you have to pay for it because I detrimentally relied on your approval here and move forward and spent the money based on that approval. So if you want to say that I have to replace it, you're going to have to pay for it.
Well, and my thought is kind of like if the HOA is being kind of like lenient on some rules and stuff, is there any kind of action he can take to take to the HOA and say, hey, I'm gonna take this action against you, or you can let me put my metal roof in, because right now we have all different color houses, and it's either we can have a uniformity in the neighborhood and follow all the rules, or we can kind of have this arbitrary system that you put in place.
Well, it depends how their HOA documents are written, how the declaration is written. Some documents have specific colors that are already pre-approved by the HOA, and as long as you abide by those, then you're fine. Other ones, you have to go to the architectural committee, and they vote whether to approve your colors, your design, whatever it may be. So I would need to know a little bit more how this HOA is set up in order to tell him, the proper method to go about trying to bring a claim or a lawsuit or whatever it may be. But if it's simply a matter of everybody does whatever they want, they don't enforce anything, that's very dangerous in the sense that, hey, the HOA board changes, now they're coming through trying to enforce everything. You get into this litigation with them where they're now trying to enforce the covenants. You're claiming selective enforcement, that their enforcement is arbitrary and capricious. And now you have a lengthy litigation on your hands that can cost you a lot of money. While, that may be fun for the attorneys, it's not necessarily fun for the homeowners, and I wouldn't recommend it.
There you go. Appreciate that, Mo. Thanks for the emails and the voicemails. If you want to send an email, ask@DeWittLaw.com. That is ask@DeWittLaw.com, or the voicemail is 407-53 Moses, 407-536-6737. There we go. I know numbers. I'm good. 407-536-6737. We got a whole nother final segment coming up of the DeWitt Law Review on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580.